Welcome to the Butter Notes podcast with three guys who have no business listening to music, much less talking about it. All right, we're doing raw beef number 5.
This is what the people want. The people are asking us, raw beef number 5, when's it coming out? We know it's belated. We're really sorry.
To our faithful followers.
You see those moments of silence like that right there. That's what people tune in for. It's good stuff.
Yep. That's classic
That
Butter
is
Notes
great.
right there.
First album, what is it?
Oh, that quick? All right. Are you? Yeah. My notes here.
It is what should be easily pronounceable Latin, but which I'm going to leave to Pater Noster to
Exactly. Yes.
to elucidate.
This is Dona, Nobis, Pacem. Any Catholic person who watches this, let me know if I got that right.
Dona, Nobis, Pacem. That's how you say it.
Is it
Oh, you
Pacem?
fucking idiot.
I'm serious. That's how you say it.
It's a dead language, man. I don't know.
God, don't you speak Latin?
I do
I
speak
speak Latin. Yeah.
So what is this album? It's about it's like about birds. It's a National
Yeah,
Geographic.
it's about doves and just nature sounds. Mostly, this guy went out into the Amazon rainforest and just had a hydroponic microphone and put it up into the trees and just a bunch of nice bird sounds. And you should check it out. It's 5 out of 5.
It sounds
Yeah,
better
18,
than the
18
actual
naked
album.
cowboys in the shower.
Not as good as that. No. No,
Jacob,
but
how in the fuck did you find this album?
Yeah, it's really obscure. So if you go on YouTube and type in the album title, you get a bunch of like videos of Catholic masses. And if you type in pedal point, you get a bunch of music theory videos. So you kind of have to type in both of them to find it. So there's this YouTube channel that I really, really like. It's probably one of my top 3 favorite YouTube channels. So I'll go ahead and plug that here. It's called Progline. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but this guy basically, I don't know where he finds this stuff, but he just will post like undiscovered, or kind of like underground, like a hidden gem progressive records from like the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s and stuff. I found all sorts of really cool, interesting stuff there. Actually, that's how I found Happy the Man, because I probably wouldn't have found them any other time, at least back then before I was on Prog Archives. Because I think you said, this isn't on Prog Archives, weirdly enough. So, I don't know, I just saw it had been... Yeah, this
That's
I
shocking.
think, yeah, it's really weird because, well, I'll say a bit about it in a minute, but I don't know. I think I found this maybe a year ago. I think it was uploaded and it showed up in my subscriptions, and I was like, the album cover looked kind of cool, and so I just clicked on it and listened to it, and I was immediately struck by these vocals, and I don't know, they sounded beautiful to me, and I was like, I don't know who this is. And I just went through and listened through the album and stuff, and then it wasn't until sometime later, a few months later maybe, that I realized it was Thies Van Leer from the band Focus, and it was really surprising to me. This is a completely 180 turn from what he was doing in the band Focus. Would not have pegged him for writing what amounts to, I guess, like Catholic gospel influenced progressive rock. So basically, it's Thies as a part of his sort of solo career, and he assembled this group of musicians from Chile to help him, assist him in the recording of it, and so you end up with this album here, and I think I mean, as far as I could tell, there's not much acclaim for this album, because I don't think many people know about it. But what I could find about it on the internet, a lot of people seem to think it's definitely a hidden gem. I think the composition on this record is excellent. I think Thies is a master composer. His vocals are excellent on this record. He makes great use of the vocoder at certain parts in the record. I don't know. I just thought it was a really surprising, and I would say if it's not a masterpiece, it's something just short of a masterpiece. I don't know how this didn't get more airplay or notoriety than it already has.
Is this the only album that was released under the name Pedal Point?
I think so. Yeah, he had a bunch of other solo records, but I think they were just billed as Thies Van Leer. But I think this was the only Pedal Point record, as far as I can tell. There's not much information about it on the internet, weirdly enough.
Yeah, I really couldn't find much. It's a good album though.
The album is a mass, right? Like in the traditional classical sacred music.
I mean, there's
sense.
obviously...
Like a mass is a genre of music. That's what this is, I think. Not that I'm super educated in that stuff.
Wait, so are you saying... I was thinking... Maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but I was thinking you mean like it simulates like a Catholic mass. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
too.
or like the Requiem Mass. Like there are like classical pieces that are
Yeah.
like are a mass. Like the Mozart's
Yeah.
Requiem Mass is like the most famous one.
Right.
It's like a
Right,
that's a
right.
type of piece of music, a mass.
Gotcha.
Obviously meant to accompany
I didn't know
a mass.
that. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would imagine
Yeah,
that's what
like
this
a
is. Yeah, for real. No, I'd imagine that's what he was going for on this. I mean, there are times where it's indistinguishable from a Catholic mass. There's just certain vocal arrangements, and the sort of the choral elements of it. Well, and then of course the album. We were talking about this, why the group is called Pedal Points, and of course that's a musical term. You have to look it up on Wikipedia. I'm not hip to this kind of stuff, but apparently it's derived from a certain feature of the organ, and I guess they moved from organ to church to Christian music to pedal point, and that's the only reason I could think is why they decided to call the group Pedal Point. But no, I think that was the idea here, and it was kind of in the mold of more classical type music that's written in Latin and stuff like that. So no, I think it does a great job at capturing that. I've been to a couple Catholic masses in my life, and I had flashbacks, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember sitting in the pew there and watching the priest while the music played. And then of course it's the whole album's in Latin, so that's unmistakably a Catholic thing there too as well.
The
Yeah,
text
now,
I'm pretty
I
sure
wonder-
is like. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Anthony.
The text I'm pretty sure is like liturgical text. I think it's like liturgical language, Latin being used here. I don't think this is like original Latin lyrics happening.
That makes
I
sense
recognized
as
the
well.
phrase Espiritu Santos, and then I
Yeah.
pretty much tuned out.
Well, it was Christu, I knew that one. Dominu, and there's another Gloria. Well, that's the name of one of the tracks. But yeah, there's some Ex Maria. I heard Ex Maria in there. Yeah, it might be. You might be right. That's probably the case. And they just put it to a melody and played it. No, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I was blown away by this album because, like I said, I just wasn't expecting. I had no clue it was Thies at first. I mean, I knew he had.
Yeah, neither did I. I got through probably half the album, and you're like, "Oh yeah, it's Thies from Focus." I was like, "No shit."
Yeah.
And you can hear it, but if no one had told me, I probably wouldn't have noticed.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone knows them for Hocus Pocus, right? That is nothing like this album. Definitely a different kind of.
Yeah, there was
energy.
there was no Latin yodeling.
No yodeling, no whistling. He did do some weird. I mean, he's got some weird vocal flourishes, and then I don't know. I know people think that the vocoder can be campy or cheesy sometimes, but he didn't rely on it too heavily, and I thought it was really nice to break the tension at certain points. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I like the vocoder on this album.
Yeah, especially on the second track, Credo, which is like a
That's the high
27-minute
point.
centerpiece.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the high point.
That's a
Credo.
wonderful track. There's that track in the middle. It's that long. It's like the longest one. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce
I know
it.
the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, but it comes in and they're kind of all like chanting, and then the vocoder comes in. I don't know. I just think it's a really cool way to break the tension, and then it kind of like meanders into this sort of more gospel style. They have that bass playing in the background, and they have like the gospel singer coming in. So it kind of meanders through that. There's some flute arrangements in here, lots of piano, lots of sort of ambient stuff as well. Yeah, this is. I mean, it's a very spiritual record, but I think that was obviously intended to be the case. But I never would have pegged him for having a penchant for writing something like this after seeing what he accomplished in Focus.
Yeah, so I mean, compositionally, I really liked a lot of it, especially the more ambient parts, the more sort of raw composition. Some of it got a little cheesy. I'm thinking in particular of the part in Gloria where they keep repeating the name Gloria. You know the part I'm talking about?
I like that.
I like it. It's just it's a little cheesy for me. It was a little too cheesy for me.
Oh man, I like it. They do Gloria, and then that guitar's playing underneath. It's got that nice rhythm to it. That's one of the high points of the album. I mean, I can understand it, but I mean, in a way, I guess it's a historical contextual thing. In a lot of ways, if you play this to people nowadays, most people think it's cheesy because it is a very ham-fisted Catholic advertisement in a way.
So
a lot of people would say it's cheesy for that, but I don't have that aversion to it particularly.
You said that they obtained papal approval for the release of this album. Is that
my only source?
Correct?
My only
Some
source for this
rando
is
on Rate Your Music
said it. Yeah, that's the only source I have. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I don't know.
God, I hope that's true.
I mean, Thies is internationally renowned. I mean, people knew who he was back in the 70s and 80s. So, if someone wrote an album like this, made his way to the Pope, and I could see it, but I can't confirm whether that's the case. It'd be really cool if it were the case, though.
I'm definitely going to continue telling people that's true. So,
yeah, I mean,
thanks to anonymous homie on Rate Your Music.
Yeah.
Remember that Pope Francis put out a prog rock album in like 2015? Did you remember that when that came out? Like Lay
Holy shit,
Orme
are you
did
not
the
kidding?
background music. I'm dead ass serious. You didn't hear about that?
Oh fuck, I don't remember
It's
that
like
at all.
Lay Orme doing the instrumentals, and then it's Pope Francis just like talking over it. I've never heard it, and I don't really want to. But that came out a couple years ago.
I definitely want to hear this.
I don't.
I like those classic Le Orme albums.
Oh yeah, me
those are
too.
great.
But
Yeah. I don't know if I care to hear Pope Francis talking over it.
this album, this Pedal Point album, I thought was very, very average symphonic prog, to be honest. I've listened to a lot of symphonic prog. We all have. It's like one of the genres of music I've listened to the most of, and there was nothing on this that really stood out to me that much upon first listen. The guitar was pretty good, but it was mainly just sort of like Steve Howe, Steve Hackett, somewhat derivative of that. The arrangements were interesting. I just thought it was average. I thought it was an average symphonic prog album. Obviously, it might do more for me upon more listens. I've only listened to it once, but nothing like stood out to me tremendously.
That was my impression. The first time I listened to it, I just an afterthought, and then I came back and listened to it, and I think I was just lying on the couch one day, and I just put it on again, had my headphones on, and closed my eyes, and just listened to it, and that's when I don't know, I felt like I was like, oh, I understand it now, or something. You know, those experiences when you listen to a piece of music again. So I think this is definitely a grower. Yeah, actually, James, now that you say that, it did strike me as a bit corny or cheesy the first time I listened to it. No, I mean, I don't think there's anything, there's nothing novel about this album, but I think the arrangements are on par with the rest of what the symphonic people were doing in the late 70s and early 80s, and I think I'm just drawn to Thies's energy and his, I don't know, just his vocal talent. I think he's one of the most underappreciated vocalists in progressive music. So that's something I'm just really, really drawn to. And then just the way it kind of meanders through. I mean, there's some Progressivo Italiano influence on here. There's the more symphonic stuff.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, you get some of the gospel stuff too. And I just think it's a cool, interesting concept, especially considering at that time I doubt much anything else like this was being made. So I think I don't know what I rated it. Did I rate it a 5 on Rate Your Music? I'm comfortable standing by that rating. I think it's a near masterpiece, if not a masterpiece. I was very impressed by this record.
I would disagree, but it's definitely an interesting little oddity of obscure 70s, 80s symphonic rock. And I mean...
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's that it's so obscure and that I just happened to stumble upon it. I was like, wow, this is really good for being something nobody knows about. But yeah, nonetheless, I really, really enjoy it, and I've listened to it frequently in the past couple weeks.
Yeah, I listened to it 3 times this week. I seem to always just do these 3 times each. And I dig it. It's not. I lean more in Tone's direction. It was good, not great.
I thought it was average.
I think I gave it like a 3 out of 5 or so.
Yeah, I saw 3 out of
3
5.
out of 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny because the rating was, I think, a 3 out of 5, and then I gave it a 5, and it bumped it up to 3.2. So I've altered I've altered the rating. It was like
how many people have ever
people.
listened to this?
It was like 12 people when I rated it. So I was like the 13th person in the world to give it a rating on Rate Your Music.
It
I
currently has
wonder how
15
many people
ratings.
have ever heard this since it was released in the 80s.
Yeah.
It was released
We're
on
at what? We're at
CBS Records, according to Rate Your Music. which is
Huh.
like major label.
Yeah.
It has 15 ratings on Rate Your Music, 3 of which are ours, so the 3 of us account for 1/5 of the ratings.
I'm gonna give it a 0.5 just to knock it down a little bit.
Yeah, do it. I'll do the same.
It's already the lowest. It's already the lowest rated record of all our raw beefs.
Is it?
No need to hurt.
Yeah.
No need to hurt it anymore. Yeah. No, it's not like a 3.2 on Rate Your Music, but I mean, I'd be interested
As
to
if
see.
that's bad.
It's not bad. I think I would imagine this album is not. It does not have a popular taste. I think the Catholic thing is going to sink it for a lot of people. I think a lot of people won't be able to get past it.
I actually
mean,
liked that about it. That was one of the things I found the most charming about it, actually.
Yeah, no, I quite liked it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't grow up Catholic or anything, but I've been to Catholic masses and I always thought they were really interesting and cool, as opposed to Protestant.
Yeah, I grew up an altar
services,
boy.
so-
I grew up an altar boy, and this made me want to put on the dress again. So
You said you sent it to your buddy, and he was like, the first thing he noticed was the Catholic, the bit
Yeah.
of it. So
I sent it to him, and he sends back, "What the fuck? I'm Catholic again."
yeah, yeah. I said I should have been more sensitive before sending it to recovering Catholics. So my bad.
There's a good sentence from that rando review on Rate Your Music where he says, perhaps, the first 2 sentences are, I'm perplexed by the low ratings of this album here. Perhaps it's not cool, in quotes, enough for the beard kids here.
The beard kids, yeah.
The beard.
And
One word, right? Beard kid. I remember seeing
Beard
that
kids,
too.
yeah.
And cool is in quotes as if the word cool
It's
is
scare
some like
quotes.
is some like weird slang.
I think this record is definitely Boomer Town because I found a blog where somebody was talking about this album and I don't know, you know that Boomer cadence online, you could tell like with it, and all
Yeah.
the people in the comment section are like, this
Way
is
too
this is a
many
great
exclamation points.
Yeah.
The
Very-
boomer dots. The boomer ellipses.
album. Yeah, it's everything's incredibly genuine and sentimental too. There's
It's
no
not
layer.
all
There are
it's
there
not
are no
post-ironic nihilism. It's
There's
not.
no
It's
layer-
not
there-
ham-fisted post-ironic nihilism.
There are no layers to boomers on the internet. Yeah, which is I love that. I just watched a Dream Theater interview and yeah, it was great. They just told like they just said what they thought. Like a bunch of robots. It was great. I love it.
But as a beard kid, a certified official beard kid myself, and I didn't think
Card
this album
carrying.
was that great. I think this guy kind of read me. I have to give this
Yeah.
rando some credit. He read me before I even listened to the
Yeah.
album.
He read your ass. He sniffed you out a mile away.
I got
Yeah,
read.
he's got-
I got fully read by that rando. So, and I think you did too,
You
Jimbo.
Yeah.
He can keep the villa in Italy.
Yeah, you can. I'll go. I'll take my helicopter to the yacht. Go buy a new estate in Scotland.
Oh boy.
Sweet Jesus. All right.
It's a good
we'll
place to
call
listen
that,
to this. Would be in Italy.
We'll call that a signpost into the next album. For Your Own Special Sweetheart by Jawbox. Some mid-90s post-hardcore. Had either of you guys ever heard this before?
Never
Well,
heard
no
it.
shit.
No.
You had never heard it before because this is a Raw Beef episode. Had you heard of it before?
Never heard of this before.
No.
Wow. Yeah, so
I,
this is some Pitchfork core that I found when I made that spreadsheet back in 2016, and I was just going through the motions. Probably I think it was last year, and threw this thing on, not knowing what the hell to expect, and it really caught me by surprise. I really like this album. It's harsh. There's a lot of tension. It's got this real punk attitude to it. The songs are interesting. I like the way the vocals are laid on top of it. They're like sort of harsh. I mean, there are moments where he's screaming, but it's not very often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really know what else to compare it to. I don't know much in the post-hardcore genre, especially this early.
Yeah. This
I love
this
post-hardcore
record is.
music.
Yeah, this record is interesting because so when I listened to it, I was like, wow, I've heard this before somewhere. Like I've heard this style before. I've heard that.
Mhm.
I don't know. But I looked up bands similar to this, and I'd never heard of any of the bands that they get grouped in with, which I thought was really strange. One of the groups I thought about was Baroness. There were some things going on in this that were, I don't know, reminiscent of that kind of sort of sludge rock or sludge metal, sort of like not the atmospheric sludge that we talked about a couple months ago, but like the more of the like post-hardcore leaning sludgy kind of stoner stuff.
Oh yeah.
That goes on. There's some intronaut I heard in here maybe. Just tinges of it. It would always like take me somewhere. Like I've heard this kind of style before. So I'm wondering if a lot of post-hardcore bands I've listened to have heard this and been incredibly influenced by it, and I just never knew it. But I don't know any of the bands that they're affiliated with. It was really weird.
Sludge metal and post
Tone,
hardcore.
can we get a quick rundown on post-hardcore here?
I'm not an expert on post hardcore music, honestly, but I really like it. It's not a genre I'd say that I could give a rundown on. But there's definitely a Venn diagram on. There's definitely a Venn diagram between sludge metal and post-hardcore music. I think that's right.
People often make a distinction between metalcore and post-hardcore too. I don't know exactly what the metalcore I've heard is more on the like coming out of the thrash and then to the death metal pipeline, and then the hardcore is coming from like Black Flag and that stuff and pushed down.
Right.
But it all kind of reached a zenith, at least pop culture wise, in the like late 2000s, early 2010s with like Risecore and Warped Tour kind of music. But there's still a wide variety. So I mean, a lot of people when they hear post-hardcore music, you think like Asking Alexandria or Attack Attack, but for every one of those, you have bands like Let Live or something like that, or Dance Gavin Dance, and there's a big spectrum of music. So a lot of that stuff gets lumped in because they all happen to be on the same sort of labels and stuff. But like I don't know, I've heard August Burns Red is metalcore, but I don't know if they're post-hardcore. I really don't know how that breaks down exactly.
Okay,
Post-hardcore is more experimental.
Yeah, I'm looking at the post-hardcore top albums on Rate Your Music right now. Spiderland by Slint, that's a great album. Have you guys heard that before? Yeah, that's a great album.
Yank Crime by Drive Like Jehu, that's an amazing album.
Which one?
Yank Crime by Drive Like Jehu.
I've never heard that before.
And also Shape of Punk to Come by Refused is amazing. Both of those albums are amazing.
I see Double Nickels on the Dime and Zen Arcade on here. I'm kind of surprised, actually. Those seem like more straight-ahead punk albums.
What about Unwound, who I've never really heard, but I know that they're really highly acclaimed? I
don't see them either. The Shape of Punk to Come is on here. That's in the top 10. Repeater by Fugazi, that's on here. That's a great album. I could definitely see the overflow in a couple of these.
Yank Crime isn't in the top 10 on there?
No, sir. Oh, yes, it is. It totally is.
Yeah, I thought it.
Number 8. Yeah.
Is post-hardcore under metal or rock in Rate Your Music?
That's a good question.
Let's see here. Yeah, let's see here.
Because most of the post-hardcore...
it's under hardcore.
Oh, okay. I didn't know there was one.
So hardcore, and then in brackets, punk, is the umbrella within which we find post-hardcore.
I'm not seeing hardcore on here. That's weird.
Hardcore punk, I'm pretty sure, is what they call it on Rate Your Music.
Oh.
Although the two are interchangeable.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so this is sort of a tangent here, but there were a couple albums in here I was actually really surprised how much I liked when I first heard them. Like Zen Arcade here by Husker Du.
Never heard it.
It's a pretty straight ahead punk album. I mean, it's got a lot of attitude, but it's I think it's some kind of a concept album maybe.
It's really long, right? Isn't that album like 80 minutes?
It's long. Yeah, it's long and it's more well put together, I'd say, than a lot of punk stuff. I remember really liking that when I heard it a few years ago. Same with Double Nickels on the Dime by Minutemen.
That I also haven't heard. I'm definitely not like an expert on post-hardcore.
So Double Nickels on the Dime, you know the Jackass guitar lick?
I do know what you're talking about, but I can't think of
how it sounds. That's Minutemen on Double Nickels on the Dime.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know many of these bands on this list. I know La Dispute. I've heard them.
So I'd say this Jawbox album is on the more experimental end of that lineup there that we were just talking about. I mean, like, there's tons of tension. Like a lot of those guitar riffs, especially in the first tune, the opener on the album, it's just this grinding guitar part with some pretty with a big dissonant chord that seems sort of disconnected from the rest of the music, but it's driving everything home. And on top of that sort of classic punk sound, it's really interesting. It took me by surprise.
Yeah, what was the first track is FF equals 66, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and then like it ends with him just like screaming that over and over in that crescendo. It was pretty awesome. I like it. That first track, especially with that like super intense ending, like sold me immediately on this album. I thought this album was awesome. The bass playing really stood out to me throughout the album too.
Yeah, the bass is great.
And even like simple punk music very often has really good bass playing. That's kind of a through line in punk music, and that's definitely the case here. Like a lot of those bass grooves. There were a couple moments where, like, they really let the rhythm section kind of just like loosen up a little bit, and where the guitars faded out a little, and those sections were awesome.
Jake, what'd you think, man?
I thought it was alright. It wasn't my I don't know. Like I said, I kept hearing parts of it and was like, this reminds me of other stuff. And then I found myself wanting to go listen to the other stuff. I was like reminded of it. Not that this album was bad. I thought it was it's like a quintessential like, I don't know, in the vein of like 90s hardcore. It's like it just like encapsulated that aesthetic. I thought has a lot of good energy on it. The song was it Survey, and there's the song right before that. Those two, it's like the second and third track. I thought were really enjoyable. Some of the guitar riffs are really cool. Kind of punchy. Yeah, I thought it was good overall, but I would probably give it like a 3.5 or a 3 out of 5, something like that. I'm sure this album was probably really influential for a lot of the music that I listened to, growing up without realizing that it was an influence on those records. So this is probably another case where I need to listen to it a few more times.
This is from '94. Was that the year?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, 94.
Yeah, it's pretty experimental
DC band.
for stuff that early in the '90s.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. So I heard some of the, like, I don't know, there was like back in high school when I listened to that Rise Core stuff, there was like a group of bands coming out of Texas doing this weird kind of like metalcore, post-hardcore with like a country kind of flourish to it in a way. It had this like southern, and I didn't realize they were from DC until I looked up their page, but I was like, this group sounds like they're from Texas or Arkansas or something like that. They had like this weird southern metalcore vibe going on, which I really liked that about it, I will say. But yeah, I don't know, it was really, yeah, I just had this weird, this weird sort of dissociation when I was listening to it, because I couldn't figure out what it sounded like, but it was like, it's like it was on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't figure it out. So that makes me want to explore the record more, I think, see what it connects to. I was doing a bunch of research to see like who they played with, or I don't know if anyone started any new bands or other bands I'd heard of or anything like that. I know that they just they broke up for a while, and then they did a reunion tour, and I think they're touring again, maybe making music again as of like 2019 or something like that. It'd be interesting to see what kind of bill they would get on with other bands and stuff. So yeah, I definitely want to follow up on this and see what other music it's in connection with. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious to take a dive on that top 10 post-hardcore records actually now that having revisited this one.
Yeah, Drive Like Jehu was definitely the band that I thought of the most when I was listening to this. I'm surprised that Gang Crime didn't show up on your Pitchfork Core 90s spreadsheet, because that's also from '94.
You know, honestly, it totally might have, and I've just forgotten it. There's tons of albums where I'm like, oh, I don't think I've ever heard that, and then I go back and I go, oh, I guess I did listen to that at some point.
Fair.
But
Fair.
I'd have to go back and check.
The album cover is freaky as shit, though.
Yeah, is that a blow-up doll? I think it's a blow-up doll.
I think it's what it's supposed to be. I don't know if they took a picture of it or if somebody painted it. It looks like somebody painted it, but it might be some weird photographic
It looks like it's a blow-up doll sitting in front of a tire.
And it looks like,
I think that's right.
No, it looks like a typewriter, like typewriter keys.
Yeah,
like
it does look like typewriter keys.
And it also looks like someone
I can see that.
but like took a lighter to the top of the doll's head and like melted it open. That's what it looks like.
It does look like some fire, yeah. It has like
It's
an
definitely
aura.
creepy.
It's really weird.
That is pretty creepy.
Yeah.
I hate dolls so much. Dolls freak me out, and this is definitely doing that to me.
I like the old porcelain dolls with the like really
Those
uncanny
things are
valley
so
features
creepy,
and stuff.
man. Yeah.
I love going to antique stores and just staring at them like do something.
Haley's mom has a
latch onto
collection
me.
of those fucking things. It's
You told me
just
about that.
This big cabinet full of dolls. It's so creepy, man.
No,
There's never just one of them. If someone has them, they always have 30 of them.
Yeah, there's 30 of them exactly.
God
Yeah.
damn it. That is not for me. That is
Yeah,
not for me.
Nor for me. All right, let's move on to number 3 here.
Breezing through these today, boys. This is a good one.
Heck of a name. Heck of a band name. Bark
Yeah.
Psychosis.
Bark Psychosis, codename Dustsucker. So one of 2
Dustsucker.
albums from Bark Psychosis. First one was from their first one, Hex, was from '94. I think it's not '94. It's
And then
93,
this is
pretty
10
sure it's
years
94.
later in
Then-
04.
Then 10 years later in '04, we have the second one, codenamed Dustsucker. Both are essential. Their Bark Psychosis, their first album, Hex, was the very first album that was described as post-rock. The journalist who reviewed it called it post-rock, and that was the origin of the term. It's like universally accepted as the origin of the term post-rock was in a review for Hex, their first album.
Interesting.
I had assumed that, James, you had listened to Hex while listening to 90s, like, Pitchfork Core, but I guess you didn't.
It's possible. Again, I'd have to go back and check.
And they're both essential albums. This second one, codenamed Dustsucker, I think is better, but not by a lot. I think they're pretty on par. There's probably a lot of debate as to who prefers what, but they're both acclaimed. This is an album that I loved immediately, and I first heard this in college when I was like kind of skeptical about like minimalist rock like this and post rock. I really, really love that stuff now, but around the time I was not that into it. But I always liked this. And I think what's so impressive about Codename Dustsucker is that it could so easily be boring, but it's never boring. And like a lesser band trying to make music like this would be very boring. Because there's not a lot happening. The tempos are always slow. They never speed up really at all. The pace is always very mid-paced. There's not a whole lot happening like at any point. And a lesser band trying to do this, it would be really monochrome and just like lose your attention. And I know probably some people who aren't into this even feel that way about this, but I never think so. Like they're always building the texture and doing something that's like consistently exciting on this thing, despite the fact that it's like honestly it's dreary, slow music that never really picks up tempo wise, but it's always exciting, and I think that that's really impressive.
Yeah, and textured is exactly the right word for this. I mean, there's so much going. It sounds like there's a million tracks. It's very the production's very lush. It's very full. It was pretty peaceful album in a way.
But also sort of dark too. There's
Yeah.
some darkness on it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I got this. I got the exact same read on it.
I thought this was a much more, this is a much busier and more layered post-rock album than what I'm used to hearing. And when I went back to the Rate Your Music page for this, I think someone said basically what I was. I'll let them say it, but Bark Psychosis pushed the boundaries of what it meant to be a rock band, integrating a healthy sense of dynamic tension, the only element that seems to have survived in what we now call post-rock. I don't know if that's true. I doubt that that's true, but it seemed to say that there were a lot of other influences that were brought to bear on these two records. I still need to listen to Hex, but I thought this was much busier, and I felt that there was more electronic influence and more there was some jazzy kind of parts on it as well. So I thought it was a much busier. I don't know, Anthony, what you were saying about it. I think is I don't know. I think that's just endemic to post rock in general, and listening to this album, I thought I don't know, it did one better by just managing to stay very interesting. And while it does have that sort of tension breaking moments, it has a lot of layers to it, and it still manages to have that sort of those ambient textures and things. I thought it was really interesting, and I wouldn't have guessed that this group was the progenitors of post rock. But no, I really liked this album. I think I haven't rated it yet, but I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5 or so.
I think that's where I put it.
What I
Yeah,
kind
I
of
think
meant
it's-
was like
I think it's
when
good.
you. What I sort of meant was like if you listen to like the really classic post rock bands, like if you listen to like Godspeed or Explosions in the Sky or something, most of the tracks like start off very quiet and slow, and then build to a crescendo. Like that, especially Godspeed. Like when you listen to one of
Oh, I
those
see.
25-minute Godspeed tracks, you know it's going to start off slow and you know it's going to build. And like they do it well because they're like the best in this style. But like you know it's going to build and you know it's going to explode and it's going to be very climactic. Whereas on Codename Dustsucker, it stays in the quiet range way more, and you're not getting a whole lot of explosive crescendos in the way that one might expect from post rock. And a lesser
there's
post
not as
rock
much of a
band, as I
catharsis.
said, that would be boring. But they pull it off
I
on
see.
here.
No, absolutely, they do.
You know.
Yeah, man, it managed to keep my interest the entire time. What's that song? Is it Incubator? Or Incub? Is that what it's stylized like IQ?
Yeah, Incubator.
Yeah. I gravitated to that track, and then I think the other one was Rose or Rosie or something. Both of those were dark. At the end of, I think it was Rose or Rosie, whatever the name of the track was. There was that weird electronic part at the end. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, at the very end. That's the last track, I believe.
They would do that. They would lead up to something really interesting like that. So they would bring in like another instrument, or they would add on another really interesting layer at the end, and that was, I felt, their kind of like version of building up the music. But it wasn't this big, powerful kind of catharsis that I experienced in other post rock, which is fine. I mean, yeah, I very much enjoyed that that take on it.
The second track, The Black Meat, which is probably my favorite track, which is super jazzy and has like a lot of trumpet. There's a break in it. I don't know if you all remember it, but there's like this break in The Black Meat where it almost sounds like the song ends, and it's just like this half second of silence, and then it like immediately transitions into like this very jazzy sort of like rainy film noir trumpet solo, and it's just beautiful. And it doesn't even really get louder. Like it sounds louder even though it's really not louder. It's hard to describe, but that break is just in The Black Meat is just beautiful. It's so good. And a lot of good electronic stuff, as you mentioned, like the third track, Miss Abuse, also has this great synth line, this like kind of Moog sounding synth line that just repeats in a way that's like really hypnotizing and exciting. They just kind of like build that repeating synth line with the textures, like in a really subtle and really interesting way. It's really good.
Now, when you said Moog, did you mean the Moog synthesizer?
Moog is how I prefer to say it,
The
even though I know
Moogs.
it's wrong.
It should be Moog. Yes.
It should be Moog.
I missed one with that. Yeah.
Moog just fits the sound of the synth better.
Yeah, for real.
It's too bad that fucking guy had to be named Moog.
Moog.
Okay.
Yeah, Moog is almost like an onomatopoeia for what the instrument sounds like.
Yeah, seriously.
It worked out nicely.
Yeah, I really dig this. I'm stoked to go back and listen to that album Hex, which I checked I had not had on my spreadsheet, so I'm definitely curious to go back for that one. And this will be a repeat listen. I like this a lot.
Pitchfork did not do a retrospective review of Hex, at least according to Wikipedia, which is very surprising. It's the exact kind of 90s record that they would have like eaten up back in like the early 2000s.
Oh, Pitchfork. Alrighty. Should we rank these things?
It's ranking.
Yeah, I got some stats for y'all. When we finish.
All right. My ranking would go Pedal Points, Bark Psychosis, Jawbox, but the 2 and 1 are really close.
And that's 3-1, I'm assuming, right? Just
Yeah.
For our audience.
In fact, this Bark Psychosis and Jawbox were about equal for me.
Cool.
I would say I'm gonna stratify the ratings here. I always feel like a shithead picking my album first, but that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I'm gonna go Jawbox at 3, Bark Psychosis at 2, and then Pedal Point at 1.
Pedal Point is definitely 3, Jawbox is 2, and Bark Psychosis is 1. I think I've picked my album as 1 in every single one of these, which definitely makes me feel like an
No,
asshole.
you picked. Well, I've got the statistics on this actually.
Okay, let's hear them.
I think James is the one who ranks other people's albums first most frequently. So good on him for that. I think you might be the one who rates your own album first, which is fine. I mean, that's you rate.
I mean,
bring
it
some
makes
good
sense.
albums.
You're the one bringing something to the table, so
Well,
you're
that
gonna have
too.
more experience with it at least.
That too, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, the experience.
No, there's no.
factor is
I'm
really
not. Yeah, I'm not making a normative claim about that. But yeah, let's do some stats here. So, James, with your Jawbox record, you dropped your average score down just a tad to 3.63. You're still in first place there.
I was surprised how low that was rated. Actually, I expect.
Yeah, me too.
I expect the Pitchfork core to keep me going.
Yeah, I thought it'd be like a 3.7, honestly. Just knowing Rate Your Music's listener base, but yeah, there it is. This Bark Psychosis record was very highly rated, which makes total sense to me. Tone's catching up. He's at a 3.59 now, average Rate Your Music score. And then, yeah, me picking Pedal Point significantly lowered my score to a 3.49. I have objectively the worst taste.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that was a given. But now we have the numbers to back it up. So you want to ask what your sources are? We know. Yeah, country breakdown. USA and the UK are starting to run away with it. I'd like to point out that, James, you have picked a UK or US band every single time we've done this. Not a problem, just an interesting tidbit there. Anthony has picked a different country every single time. And
Wow,
I've
a real
picked-
cosmopolitan.
For real. I've picked 2 US bands, but other than that, I've picked different countries every time. The only other unique ones, we have Germany, Mexico, the Netherlands are now. I was wondering whether I should give Pedal Point credit to Netherlands and Chile, which we could do that, but it is Thesis thing, so I guess I give it to the Netherlands there. Highest rated album is still Deceit, This Heat, although Codename Dustsucker has made its way up to number 2. And of course, the lowest rated album is Dona's Pacem. It's down at the bottom. And then lastly here, our average year for what we've picked here is, I believe, 1997. And we've picked 3 albums from the year 1981 and 3 from 2014. So must be some good things going on in those years, I would say.
1981. That's a really bizarre year for us to have picked.
81 and 14.
81 was a good year,
yeah.
man. We got Discipline.
It was a
what
good
else? I think the Deceit album is 81.
Have you guys ever heard Between Flesh and Divine by Asia Minor? It's like a really phenomenal, obscure symphonic prog album from 81.
I've heard of Asia Minor, but I haven't. I'm that meme. I've heard of them. I haven't heard them, but I've heard of them.
This guy, like...
But it's also
Jacob,
true.
Jacob, how does it feel to just... I've asked this question before, but I just need to ask it again. How does it feel to just be operating on a way higher level than the two of us?
If I tried to explain it, it would only confuse you.
You know what? That's the exactly correct answer.
So we're the idiots for our lukewarm take on Pedal Point then.
Well, I wasn't gonna put it like that, but since you opened the can of worms, I mean.
Do you have to go to some like exclusive like fundraising event for like the cultural elite in order to be able to explain your perspective? There has to be some level of gatekeeping.
No, not at all. I was born with it, and it came to me naturally. And it's divine dispensation. There's really no way to teach it to anyone. If you don't have it, there's nothing I can do for you. I'm sorry.
So it's
Shame.
supernatural in origin.
No, it's very natural. Just it's only doled out upon the few. It's the ultimate
I don't understand
nutritions,
because
yeah.
I don't understand.
I didn't
because
ask
I'm
to
not
be this
smart
way.
enough.
I mean, yeah, I didn't ask to be this way. Just happened.
I don't even get what you're
can't help
talking
it.
about. I'm too stupid to even understand what you're saying right now. So let's move on.
Well, I think we're moving on to the end of this episode. So, yeah, until next time.
See ya.